Once again, I have Schmier on the line. This time we're talking about Panza. Schmier, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
My pleasure, my friend. Always good to talk to you.
It's great to have you back again. Now, Panza's new album, just about to be released. If we can backtrack just a little bit just first. The first album, Send Them All to Hell. I mean, I received it well, so did everyone that I played it to. How did it go generally?
The first album was a big test. We didn't know how the fans would react to it, and it was a nice challenge. And for me, a great opportunity to finally play some straight heavy metal again. And the second album wouldn't be here if the first album wouldn't have been successful enough. If you want a big label like Nuclear Blast, you have to deliver some units also, otherwise they let you go. So we're very happy in the position that Nuclear Blast gave us the chance to do a second album, and of course we had some difficulties, as you said, with the lineup. But when the first album was great fun to play live, we had a great time writing it. I never really questioned to stop Panzer. We just had, of course, to rearrange the band somehow.
Yeah, okay. With how well it did do, did it, this is going to seem like a bizarre question, did it make you wish you did it sooner?
I think, you have the saying in Germany, you're always smarter after it's done, and
yeah.
I think the first album was great in its whole, because it was my first step again back into heavy metal. And the second one now, of course, we had the opportunity to work with two guitarists, which I love, because I'm a heavy metal fan because of guitars, and to have the chance to work with two guys that are so skilled and so good, and they are also great friends of mine. That's actually the great thing about nowadays, with all the modern technology we have that are sometimes cursed so much. On the other side, you can connect the world so fast. You can have a guitar player from Sweden that flies here to Germany in 2 hours. My friend Vio Pulver has his own studio. We go into the studio, we record stuff, and everything is quick. So that's actually a great achievement of the modern world that could not have been done back in the day when I was younger.
Back when I spoke to you the first time, just when Send Them All to Hell was just about to come out, you called heavy metal riff machine was what you called Herman. Now you put a coin,
yeah.
You put a coin in, and a heavy metal riff comes out. As you said. He was obviously a big part of the songwriting process. Now, did he leave to pursue his solo band? Was that the reason behind it?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, he's a riff machine. He wants to write songs, and he couldn't write songs for many years with Accept because Wolf Hoffmann is the main songwriter.
Yeah.
So he wanted to write Panzer songs too, and but with Panzer we had the agreement we write together. We are a team that writes together, and Herman wanted to have his own songs into Panzer also. He wanted to be the boss, but in Panzer nobody's the boss. We're all the boss. And
okay.
that kind of was leading to some problems that in the end we said to him, hey, you have your Herman Frank band, why don't you get some good musicians and do what you love, write songs, write. But here in Panzer it was getting too tight for him. I understand, but we didn't want to have a huge drama and a huge fight, so we said, why don't you do your stuff, we do our stuff. And he was a little mad at the beginning at us because, he wants to prove himself again. I totally understand it. He's a great songwriter, and he's a guitar legend. And for many years, he was kind of not in the position to oppose that, to show that actually. So yeah. I think it was a good thing for him that he does the Herman Frank band. Of course, it's a little sad loss for Panzer, but on the other side, we have two great other guitar players now that are also good friends of mine, and we had a very, very productive way of producing this album without any egos and without any problems. And that was, of course, also a fantastic experience. And I would not call Herman being an ego, but he's a very experienced guy that does stuff his way,
Yeah.
And when somebody is like 50 something, you cannot change him anymore, and I totally understand that he wants to do stuff his way. He deserves it,
Yeah.
And so this was the best way for all of us in the end.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about the new guys. Mr. Pulver. Now he produced the first album, did he not?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Also the second one. Yeah.
And he was performing live with the band initially anyway as a second
Exactly.
guitarist. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, actually, it was actually Herman Frank who asked him to join the band, and because he produced the first album, he knows everything about technology, about guitar sounds, and he's a great guitarist too. So Herman was really getting into his work while we were producing the first album. So it was Herman that approached bringing him into the band. I'm a good friend of Pulver since many years, and for me, it was of course a great opportunity to finally play together with him.
Mm. Okay, let's talk about Pontus Norgren. Where did you find him?
Pontus is also a good friend of mine since many years. Before he was in Hammerfall, he played in different bands, and he's also the live sound engineer for King Diamond. So I saw him on all those festivals over the years. We became friends, and when Panzer was looking for the second guitar player, because we said right away when we wrote the album that we need two guitars to make it really like old school and great and melodic. And Pontus heard from Stefan, our drummer, that we're looking for a guitar player, and he brought himself into the game, and we were actually surprised because he's such a busy guy. But he said to us, what's better than playing with friends? And he's totally right about that. It's if you play with friends, you know what you get. Yes, got right away good harmony, and a good harmony is very important to write good songs, to perform good live, and of course we all have the problem that we're busy or playing in bands that are busy. But on the other side, this is not a 24/7 thing. We have always some breaks here and there, so we will find some days with Panzer, hopefully also next year, to play live.
Now you touched on the technology, modern technology aspect of the industry before. Now tell us about Pontus being on tour with Hammerfall and learning Panzer songs.
Yeah, that was actually a great achievement of the new world. Pontus was building a little studio in the Hammerfall tour bus in the back lounge, and he was on the American tour. And we were getting under pressure from Nuclear Blast here because they wanted to release the album earlier. All of a sudden, we had the offer for a tour, and Nuclear Blast said we need to release the album now 1 month earlier than possible. And Pontus was on tour, so he had to do it this way. And of course, Pontus is also a sound engineer, and for him it was actually easy to do a setup. And so we've been basically corresponding over the internet, sending him the new songs, the new sound files, and gave him some time codes where he should go in and where we think the lead guitars are needed. We gave him, of course, the opportunity to do all the overdubs and add the little details. So I think for him, he never did it this way before. I think it's always a challenge when you do something like this the first time. But it turned out great, and turned out very spontaneous, because a lot of the stuff on the Panzer album is very spontaneous. Some of the demos that we recorded became album tracks, and we just changed little details, a little bit on the vocals here and there, added a little melody here and there, because I think heavy metal should always be not too clinical. It has to come out of your stomach, out of your heart, and that's what we did with the whole album. Sometimes when we thought the song has maybe too much reference, like too much Judas Priest here, too much Iron Maiden there, it's important to have this reference in Panzer, because that's what we want to do. We want to pay tribute to the old school way, and this just happens with emotions, and that's how the whole album came up. A lot of emotions on the records, and and a very funny experience with Pontus. He said he played the stuff that he recorded, the Hammerfall guys, to see if it's good enough, because there was no sound engineer to test, because when you play yourself, you want to have a improvement from somebody. So the Hammerfall guys were sitting there and said, "Hey, it's great." And he said, I had the tendency to do more takes, but a lot of times the first takes are the best takes because they are emotional.
Yeah. That's
and
right.
Then you want to do it again. Then you want to do it again and again, and it doesn't become better. So he said, a lot of times I took the first takes because the Hammerfall guys said, "Hey, it sounds great like this," and it's actually a great story behind, I think.
Yeah, just to sort of re-emphasize that in case people missed it, he built this miniature recording studio in the back of the Hammerfall tour bus, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, but nowadays what most bands do is they record a line signal of the guitar, which means the guitar is recorded just to pick up sound, very dry, without distortion. And that signal you can then put into any amp of the world. You just need basically the signal that the guitar player played, which sounds a little bit like country music. It's very dry. It has no distortion, no sustain, but it is the original playing of the guitar player. And then you can go and test the amplifiers that you want to use, like a Marshall or an Angle or whatever. And this way you don't have to specify the sound when you record. You just basically record your performance without any real sound. That the sound comes later, and that's the new technology called reamping. And this way you can basically record on any device. You can record with your mobile phone, because all you need is a digital signal to record it on the device, and then you can later on put this into an amplifier. Basically what you do is you play the song or the whole album through the amplifier. Then it's really freaky. You enter the studio and there's a guitar player playing, but when the amplifier is on and the speaker is on and stuff comes out, but there's nobody playing, because basically it's the signal that's been recorded maybe some days before or so. It's a very interesting new technology, and it helps, of course, to. Before we said shit in, shit out. Back in the day, many albums sounded bad because when they were recorded, the signal that was recorded was too dirty, was not good enough microphones, not good enough distortion pedals, bad amplifiers. And then this was developed some years ago to avoid this shit in, shit out. You have to have a clean signal that is not dirty, that you can decide what kind of sound you want. And that's actually one of the biggest achievements of rock and roll in the last 20 years, I think, because that's why the guitar sounds are so much better nowadays.
Yeah, okay. Now, from the outside, the new album's initial difference is that this one was written as a twin guitar band. Tell us how that's changed things in the Panzer camp.
Yeah, because on the first album, Herman was really aware that he's alone as a guitar player, and we wanted to keep the trio also for live. But after the album was written, there was some twin guitars on the album, of course, because you cannot just, for the sake of the songs here and there, you got to add some extras. And then we actually added Pulver to the lineup. But at that time, Herman could have done much more already for the benefit of the album, but he didn't, because he wanted to keep it a little more easy because of the live situation.
Yeah.
So now with the second album, knowing all that, I said to the guitar players, now we have two guys. Let's shoot full force. Let's really do as much as we want to do and not limit ourselves, because we limited ourselves on the first album. And then when you hear the album again, you say, here and there I could have done this and that, And for this album, we said, let's do it the way we really think it is 100%, and not think about the live situation now, because we have two guitar players that can reproduce the album. And I think that was the big benefit, the big plus on the second record, is that we could right away put all those guitars that we wanted to put.
Right, now we've got a new album, The Fatal Command. We've talked about it a little bit. It's coming out very soon. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Favorite tracks. What's your favorite track?
The favorite track on Fatal Command is, I would say it is the title track, of course, which we just released as a video clip. And I like Satan's Hollow, because Satan's Hollow is like the priest tribute on the album. And it has this specific, priest kind of vibe. And I love this kind of music, because Unleashed in the East was my first real heavy metal album. So without Unleashed in the East, I wouldn't be here. It influenced all my life. And when it comes to heavy metal, people always ask me this silly question in interviews: what is your favorite heavy metal band? And of course, it's Judas Priest. So those two are my favorites. But I think some other songs can live up to on the same level, which I think the first 5 songs of the album are very good. Like all of them are on the same level, I think. And also at the end of the album, we have some strong songs again. So I think it's difficult to just name 2, but if I name 2, I would say Fatal Command, Satan's Hollow are my 2 favorite. And We Cannot Be Silenced would be the third one maybe.
Yeah, okay. It's a bit more diverse album than the first one, I've noticed. That's obviously comes from change in personnel and one guitar to two guitar band now. We've sort of stepped up the game, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, of course, more people, more influence. We also two guitars opened the range up. We could go more in one direction. Also, two different songwriters. The first album was between Herman and me. Now the second album was between Pulver and me, and Stefan wrote some stuff also, and so the songwriters also influenced the sound of the band. We wanted to keep this German sounding attribute also, but we wanted to.
It certainly sounds German. That's good.
That's good, but we also brought in a little American, here and there's a little Ozzy Osbourne, a little metal church in there, and of course a lot of those new wave of British heavy metal, like our favorite bands from back in the day, Jaguar, Moore, Raven, Tigers of Pantang, of course Iron Maiden and Priest. So that's basically the main tribute that we pay on this album, the early 80s. Before I was a musician, I was a fan, and when Destruction started, we put the heavy metal from back in the day on a new level with thrash, which was more aggressive and different. But this time I can really write the stuff that I loved when I was young. Songs with a little speed, with a little drive, a lot of harmonies, high resolution, open up chorus, twin guitars, all the shit that I love about heavy metal.
Excellent. Now, new album out, October 6th. What's happening for Panza after that? Are you touring? Is it just the festivals? What are we doing? Because you've got to fit in with all the other bands as well, don't you? So what's happening in the world of Panza?
Yeah, I mean, next year we will be busy with our main bands, but not super busy that we're not going to have time for Panza. So, but I always say in the end, of course, it's always up to the fans. The fans basically are liking the album or not, and the fans making a record successful. So when the fans will like the record, the chances are much higher, of course, for Panza to play live. I can totally see us, of course, playing festivals next year, but we really want to do a tour also, and we're looking for a partner now, band that we can go on tour with in 2018, and I'm quite positive that it's going to happen. Of course, we have to see how the album goes, but the band wants to tour and play live, and of course those songs are breathing the live atmosphere also. They're perfect. They're made to be played live. So
absolutely. Film clips, how important are they these days? I saw the one that you, I was just watching it just before you called actually, Fatal Command, that was filmed at that nightclub that you mentioned. That looked crazy. That was good.
Yeah, now everybody does performance clips nowadays and put stories into the movies. And we said, why don't we do just something exactly the opposite? The way when we started, what was the great thing when we started about having metal music clips, And it was basically to see the band perform in a good way, so you catch the energy and the idea of the song.
That's
you
right.
see the fretboard, you see what the drummer does, you see all the little details that make the song a song in the end. And then we look behind the curtain, how does it work? How does it look behind the stage? How does the technicians work? And all the little details. That's how we started. When I was a young kid, that was my first heavy metal videos, videos that show the live situation and show me the song, bring me the song closer to my head. And that's what we wanted to achieve with this Fatal Command. You get a deep inside look of the song, on the fretboards, on the melodies and everything. And of course, a little bit look behind the curtain. How does the band, party and hang out? And, we want to introduce a little look behind our favorite club also. The Set 7 is a home base for many bands here in Europe. And it's just one of the greatest live clubs. And it's a role model for being treated well as a rock and roll band. And we want to pay tribute to the place too a little bit with the video.
Excellent.
And hopefully we're going to see in Australia. It looks like Destruction will come to Australia early 2018. Don't know about Panzer yet, but Destruction will be the first step, and hopefully Panzer one day too.
Excellent. Schmier, absolutely magnificent to talk to you again. Good luck with the new Panzer album, Fatal Command, out soon on Nuclear Blast. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me again.
Thank you very much, Mel. My pleasure. and hopefully see you in Australia soon.
Okay, you have a good night, mate.
Thank you. Bye-bye.